This is the Meseta, and I'm listening to Beethoven's Violin Concerto in D minor as we're walking this, and there never has been a piece of music more suited to a landscape. I don't know, maybe it's just my frame of mind, but it's a lovely day for walking. Just a light breeze, not too hot. So the first 5 weeks of my sabbatical was spent hiking the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain, and that clip was taken from a part of it, and it was an amazing experience. I didn't bring along a laptop or anything, so I did quite a bit of writing, but it was all in a small notebook by hand, which was really pleasing. Marked difference from how I usually write, which of course is at the keyboard. So my sabbatical project has the working title of House. It is a work of short fiction. And I say short, it's actually, I'm anticipating it's going to be significantly longer than most of what I do, which are short stories and flash fiction. And I'm not really thinking too much about the length, but if I had to guess, I would say it will probably be in the realm of a novella. So maybe 30,000 words, I don't know, something like that. So the idea really came from an interest in houses and how the house as a place of where we spend so much of our lives and invest a significant amount of money, but also invest a lot of emotional energy. And so I'm just going to read to you from my proposal, because I think this puts it well. So this project, this work of fiction, is centered on 4 couples. So it has 4 different narrative lines, 4 different plots that intersect, that merge, and then converge, and then separate. All 4 couples have a relationship to a particular house. So this house I'm envisioning set in the Midwest. So I'm just gonna read this little section from my proposal. As a structure rooted in our collective memories and sensations of childhood and in our imaginations generally, house as home evokes lingering, even inescapable images, which makes it an intriguing lens through which to organize a narrative. The house home is not just a receptacle for our memories, dreams, and fears, but a source of them. As Bachelard puts it in his classic work, The Poetics of Space, the house acquires the physical and moral energy of a human body, and so has the potential to inflect a story almost as a character. And that really was kind of the spark of my thoughts about this piece. Thinking about how to bring the house into the story almost as a character. The characters are comprised of 4 couples, as I mentioned, 2 people who actually own the house but are on an extended journey away, 2 people who move in to house sit, 2 older people who have been around the house for all of their lives but have never lived in it, and then finally 2 people who are fictional characters. One of the couple that moves into the house to house sit, the man, it's a man and a woman. The man is working on a novel, and so the 2 characters from his novel become characters in this work. So there are lots of sources, lots of fictional works about houses. One of the sources of interest for me is Mark Danielewski's House of Leaves, which was published in the year 2000. And that's a really interesting work. it is a work of horror. This is something I quickly found as I started like reading other works of fiction. Actually, they're all novels. Reading other novels about a house that would form more of a presence in the story, I quickly found that they all swerve toward supernatural or horror, because as soon as you start having a house be more than just an inert object, it's like you can't escape the supernatural feeling, the supernatural mood that it imposes on the work. So, and I'm not, my intention is not that this novella be supernatural. That was really not in my thoughts at all. So I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to avoid it. I'm finding that sense of kind of that gothic, eerie mood is creeping in as I pursue the main couple. I think, so I said there are 4 different narrative lines, and there are. I do tend to think of the couple, the young couple, man and woman, who are house sitting. I kind of am starting to view them as like the central protagonist, and specifically the man. His name is Dean. He's, they're both in their 30s. Their relationship is moving toward, they've been dating for a couple of years, or they've been living together actually for a while, and their relationship is kind of heading toward that serious zone. And so he's kind of at a crossroads with his relationship with Kim, his girlfriend, his relationship with his writing, and just, what he's going to do with his life. And I find Dean a very interesting character. I never intended him to be kind of take on the role of protagonist, but it's sort of happening. I'm going to read the opening, and this is very much a work in progress, and it's not really ready for public consumption in any way, shape, or form, but I'll read you the opening paragraph I have, and it'll just give you a little sense, okay, what we're talking about here. The intersection of Calle Judíos and Calle Thomas Conde forms a small plaza where sits the very old Café de Maimonides. In fact, 3 streets, lanes really, converge at this plaza at odd angles, so that exiting will look and feel quite different than arriving. Your disorientation will be even worse if you have not noticed the exact street from which you entered, for they all look identical and there are no signs. It's very easy to get lost on the way out. The Maimonides has 4 or 5 rickety tables just outside the door. No shade, no nothing, not even umbrellas. So that the couple we see now are forced to sit in the very bright Spanish sun, glad that they brought floppy brimmed hats, no matter how unfashionable or how they make them look like who they are, American tourists, or maybe German. They've stopped for a drink, lemonade for Alex, draft beer for Terry, very cold and refreshing. But how can Alex stand to drink something so sweet in such heat? Beer was the better choice, or water. This was the argument, one of them. They've been walking a long time because they thought the Museo Torino, with its very fine collection of bullfighting art, was a half-mile from the flat they are renting. But it turned out to be much further, and what's more, by the time they arrived, it was closed. They came across the Maimonides by accident, by the grace of God, Terry said, because if they hadn't, just in time, they would have collapsed. As it was, they don't have energy to speak or fight. It is all they can do to lift the sweating glasses and swallow. Their own house is very far away, on another continent, and neither is thinking of it. But that is not entirely true. The house is always present in their minds, in one form or another. It could be said that whether or not they occupy the house, it inevitably occupies them. I'll stop there. I mentioned that I was writing during the first 5 weeks. My husband and I hiked the Camino de Santiago, which is about 780 kilometers, starting in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France and ending in Santiago de Compostela in Spain, obviously. And then we spent the rest of my sabbatical in France, and I transcribed all the writing I had done by hand, and then sought to integrate it into the manuscript. I found that, as is so often the case with creative activity, what I was transcribing was not working, and so I ended up backing it out, and I ended up writing a separate short story using some of the material that I had written during the Camino. So I worked on House, the novella. I ended up really about doubling the length. I had started off with a draft of about 10,000 words, and then I about doubled the length. I've got quite a ways to go. And then I also wrote a short story with the working title of The Tournament of the Honorable Passage. It is also set in Spain, and it's still, I have a complete draft, and I'm just working on revising it. So, thank you.